Okay, hey, hi, hello, welcome back. Oh, Alexandrian Codex, it's, late. I was thinking about streaming, but honestly, I am a sleepy person right now. So, Islanders, because I've been trying to figure out what I've been wanting to play all day, and, hasn't really clicked, which is pretty typical for lately. I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing and digging it, though it's starting to lose some of the but yeah, you can tell how awake I am by how slowly I'm talking. It's starting to lose some of the nostalgic charm it had. It's still fun. It's still thoroughly enjoyable, but I'm reaching the point now where the way that I approach games and media is very different than how I used to when I first played it as a kid. Preteen? Been a long time. I can't remember how long, but I've been thinking about that and reflecting on that quite a bit, because now, you know, I have access to wikis and strategy guides or articles, or like it took what, a couple of days, a day, for like the tarantula farming to become a big thing, and it took like a week maybe for people to be all up on the stock market, the turnip market, yeah, STALK market, and getting all hyped and invested in that. And you know, it's cool seeing players engage with this stuff for the first time, especially if they hadn't played the games previously. But it used to be, and I'm not trying to be old man yells at cloud, but I know that I am by getting nostalgic about this. It used to be you just kind of discovered stuff because the internet sucked as a reference tool. It wasn't what it is today, and yeah, particularly what's been bringing this to mind is at a certain point in New Horizons, Animal Crossing New Horizons, you bring in new villagers. And how you do this is there's a pseudo-random island generator that you have to pay miles, points, to access. And you go to a random island, and sometimes it fits one of a few cookie cutter models, right? And they get pretty damn repetitive when you're farming, so the idea isn't that you would farm them, but you would go to a couple if you ran out of stuff to do on your main island. I think the design scheme for Animal Crossing is probably less than an hour of gameplay every day, or less than 2, probably. And hey, that's perfectly okay, but that's not how I consume media anymore. I don't really know if that's ever been how I consume media, but it's particularly not how I consume media now. But I've been trying to get not specific villagers, but I've been coming close to only wanting specific villagers. I've been repeatedly going to a new island, seeing that it has a villager I'm not that excited about, or just not all that interested in, and going like, you know what, I'm not gonna invite them, I'll just farm another 2,000 miles, which takes a while, especially when you're doing this dozens of times per day, and then going to a new island and seeing, oh, well, how do I like this NPC? And they're all pretty much interchangeable. Yeah, there's some small minutia differences, but it's mostly aesthetic differences, honestly. When I was a kid, so far as I'm aware, you had very, very little or no control in the GameCube Animal Crossing over which villagers came to live in your town. And you just kind of had to make peace with it. And I was reading some, I guess, Twitter arguments? Was it Twitter? Reddit? I don't remember. Everything's just a big old mushy mess right now in my brain, which is not new. Talking about that being, to the person writing it, that being an essential and important part of the experience. This lack of control. This part of the game that makes you grapple with, well, sometimes, you know, you don't always get to pick who you're around. And, you know, you don't choose your neighbors, you just have neighbors. And the charm of Animal Crossing, part of it, is getting to know them and their personalities and their unique qualities and quirks, and learning to live with them and cohabitate with them and make a town with them. And while that's true, I don't know if I'm wanting that from the game right now. What I'm wanting is just to... I'm wanting escapism more than anything else. I'm not wanting, not a harsh reality check, but a reality check at all from the game. I don't want the game to be like, you know, sometimes you don't get to have what you want in life. I'm like, I know that. I know that very well. I'm not playing this game to experience that. I'm playing this game to not experience that for a little while. Like, shit, home ownership? That's an outright fantasy for me. For me, at this point in my life, and probably for quite some time. But yeah, I've been bouncing back and forth on that because I'm not actually sure how I feel about the way that I'm playing the game. I am time traveling because anxiety, mostly. Yeah, I think it comes down to that. I have a really hard time playing Animal Crossing in a super chill, relaxed way. There's a streamer I particularly like. I mean, there's a lot of streamers that I really like. HC Justin, just a genuinely fantastic human being and an absolute joy. Go watch him play Animal Crossing. It's very chill and relaxed and peaceful. And I've basically, like, industrialized my island. I have fruit trees planted in rows and columns. They're just far enough apart that the graphics don't overlay each other and you can see what you're doing, but tightly packed to the point where it's as efficient as possible in terms of getting money per day out of fruit trees. All of my village houses are squeezed in one tiny corner of the map, as close together as I'm allowed, in just tiny, tightly packed streets, and the rest of the island's just dedicated to the fruit trees, basically. It's, you know, charming in a way, but it hasn't been done aesthetically. I've been doing some little things for fun, but really for the most part, it's been really heavily rooted in efficiency, in a sense. And yeah, the juxtaposition is quite... well, it sticks out to me when I'm comparing the way that my default method of play to watching new people approach the game. And of course, with this game, as with most games, well, as with many games, there is not a quote-unquote correct or incorrect way. There may be optimal or suboptimal ways to do it, given certain guidelines, values, etc., etc. But Animal Crossing is obviously pretty damn forgiving, right? I've been thinking a lot about the ways I've changed in terms of how I play games. What I'm playing games for, and these are questions that I don't think I had the capacity to really deeply, critically examine when I was younger, playing this game. Like, I'm very good at thinking critically, analytically, diagnostically, even. And I greatly enjoy, I greatly enjoy when those qualities are rewarded by the games that I play. But also, it kind of strips the magic away from a game once I get to the point where I can play it efficiently and effectively. You know, once the code is laid bare, so to speak, and you figure out the optimal way to do something, once the puzzle is solved, the magic is gone. It's not mystical, it's not magical, it's just formulaic at that point. I know the math, I know the formula. I'm kind of done with it when it reaches that point, when any game reaches that point. That's a big part of why in the last couple of years, really, whenever I've jumped into playing EU4 or Stellaris or Hearts of Iron 4, I can have fun for a couple of hours. But only a couple of hours, because after that point, I'm like, this is boring. Like, it's not challenging me or presenting me with new ideas, new data, new concepts. It's just like, I know the correct way to engage with the game, or a correct way to engage with the game, and without it being more dynamic, it loses me a lot. And that's where, for a lot of people, multiplayer comes in. And I've been thinking about hopping in and playing some multiplayer stuff, competitive or cooperative, but I really, up until very recently, being alone has been a huge asset, a huge value that I've gotten out of playing games. Just feeling alone in my headspace, able to relax and concentrate on something, and just kind of filter out the rest of the world. So the idea of playing with other people, well, it's fun, right? But at the same time, there is a certain level of emotional, intellectual engagement required, obviously. Energy and expenditure required there. And really, for most of the last year, I haven't had that so much. I've been working Graveyard, which is easy as hell, but incredibly boring. And that kind of boring tedium and the small ways that affects your mental health and outlook and psychology really got me to the point where when I was home, I just wanted to relax and sleep and be home. And yeah, I think it exasperated my recurrent need for space rather than helping it. So to that point, now that I have more time, now that I'm not having to balance out the stress and slow, maddening work of Graveyard work, because I'm in what seems like perpetual quarantine, I'm not complaining. I'm happy about it, and frankly, I'm opting into it. At this point, my previous employer, never shut down because they consider themselves an essential business, and by some definition I suppose that they are, but I don't share that interpretation, and even if I did, I kind of value the work of participating in social distancing and, you know, trying to make sure more people don't needlessly die in the most heavily infected and soon to be most heavily impacted nation by this epidemic, but, you know, I'm not here to be on my high horse about that. I have had the energy to get into more intense games, more thought-provoking, exhausting. These exhausting is not the most positive connotation, but I do mean it in a positive way. Intense experiences, I suppose. But at the same time, the whole constant existential dread of the worst pandemic in a century raging on outside, coupled with the impending economic collapse that's going to follow it and is in tandem with it, and just politics in the United States. So many things are making it so hard for me to want to, I don't know, not critically engaged, but just, I'm trying desperately to find ways to not be critically engaging. If I'm not playing games, and for the most part these days I'm really not, I'm on Twitter, Reddit, and Facebook, and wherever the hell else, looking at statistics, news, whether it be on political campaigns in the United States, or local political activity here in Seattle, or various political causes that I follow, and God, it's just one thing or another. Now, I don't begrudge that, but I am finding it really difficult right now to engage with games critically and seriously. I kind of just want to have dumb, mindless fun, with particular emphasis on the mindless part. I want to sit down and play a game and disassociate a little bit. I really do want to tune out. That's a big part of the appeal. I want to turn my brain off, or at least change the channel for a little while. And I appreciate that might sound bad. You know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I suppose it's a value judgment, and I'm not really sure where I sit on it right now, but yeah, like I was saying, playing Frostpunk yesterday, like, I definitely wasn't in the right headspace to succeed at playing Frostpunk. I was playing it too fast, and I didn't want to, like, sit down and do the math and plan things out. I didn't really want to sit and be too analytical or critical with things. I just kind of wanted to click the go button and go. I kind of just wanted it to be a reflex thing to absorb me and to be wrapped up in it. And, you know, it's fun and charming. It's a great game. It's absolutely a fantastic game. One of my favorites, actually. I've only played like 52 hours total, but it's an amazing title. It really is. But I can't get in the right headspace for it right now. Which is a shame, which is a real shame, because I want to be. I'd like that. But I'm not. And, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. So Animal Crossing, right? I feel like I have to make rules for myself at this point when it comes to games like that. Because I have to decide pretty early on how I'm going to play the game. Am I going to not use exploits, but play the game with a results-based focus or a in-the-moment kind of focus, right? This endless hunt for perfect villagers, better villagers, is a prime example of this. It seems so silly that I'm spending so much time and energy in repetitive action looking for villagers I find more aesthetically or personally interesting or satisfying or enjoyable. When I was a kid playing the game, you know, I probably would have hit villagers with and by probably I mean I remember hitting villagers I didn't like over the head with bug nets repeatedly until they got mad and moved away, or just running at them until they yelled at you. A really good way to do it was slowly push them into a corner. Just hold down the analog stick. And people now, adults really, around my age, are engaging with the new Animal Crossing, and they're looking at people using those sorts of strategies, and they're like, that's really fucked up, isn't it? Like, yeah, it is. If you were trying to treat people that way. But these aren't people, these are characters. And there's some interesting I don't know, pseudo-philosophical arguments going on about the way that people treat their villagers. Now, I haven't engaged in any villager harassment because as I am older now, it does seem extreme to engage in that sort of behavior. I was listening to a few people talk about how much they absolutely hated some of their villagers. I'm like, it's just a game. Like, they're not real. It's just lines of dialogue that writers translated or co-wrote. I actually don't know if this was originally written in Japanese and translated, like the original GameCube version, or if this was a multilingual team writing it. But all the same, human beings wrote this. This isn't a real thing you're engaging with. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, on one hand, I want very specific villagers, like, Anken? The cat has an Ankh. I, like, think they look insanely cool. She looks insanely cool. Cherry looks insanely cool. There's a dragon skinned crocodile who is super cool. There's a teddy bear that looks like he's sewn together out of various bits of fabric. Think he looks super cool. I mean, there's a few more. Like, there's a dog who's a mummy. He's pretty neat, etc., etc. And I have some villagers I like, and they're sweet and make me feel things, which is, you know, great. But at the same time, part of my brain has this stupid, like, gotta catch 'em all syndrome. And I don't know, maybe Pokemon had a significant role in my brain developing this way, this, like, kind of obsessive completionist, gotta collect everything kind of mindset. But even though I'm relatively happy with the villagers I have, part of me still wants to like go make a spreadsheet of all the villagers, make a tier list, and like rank them from like you know, make a tier list of them, of which ones I want the most and which ones I don't, and selectively farm for those villagers. But at the end of the day, fundamentally, it wouldn't really be any different at all. Functionally, they would be pretty much exactly the same. But still, something in my dumb little monkey brain is like, yes, this is something I want. So I've been wrestling a lot with that, trying to figure out what it is that I'm wanting to get out of this and what it is that I am getting out of it. And more broadly, I've been thinking about games as a whole in that context. Games, for me, have been through much of my life a way to express and explore my intellect, right? Or reflexes, or, you know, it's a very cerebral thing. Skill set, I guess calling it a skill set feels a little silly, but it's a very cerebral thing. And I'm obviously a pretty damn cerebral person, so I get a lot of satisfaction out of exploring and engaging with that sort of material. But at the same time, it really does not feel super satisfying just to sit at home while the world is proverbially, and in some parts of the world, literally burning. It really doesn't. It feels like a temporary and dissatisfying distraction. Like a thin layer of ice on a pond in winter. Just enough to cover the surface, but it really doesn't hold up against any sort of pressure or tension. If the analogy holds, right? You know, I can enjoy it, a game, up to a certain point, but then I start thinking about, wow, you know, the DNC almost definitely has interfered with the primary elections, and there's like nothing that I or really anyone else individually can do about that. Or the legally elected head of state of my country has been, I mean, I'm kind of numb to any news about Donald Trump at this point, which is probably bad, because at the point where you stop caring or stop noticing is really dangerous. But you outrage fatigue is a thing, and god, this is a whole conversation in and of itself. But like him advocating for anti-malaria drugs to treat COVID-19, which there's no evidence that they do, and there's strong evidence that they are incredibly dangerous to take, and that people like who have lupus, for example, can no longer get the prescriptions they need to survive and treat their real proven disease with this thing. Not that COVID-19 isn't real, just that the treatment is real for lupus. Because he's making shit up. And like the Democratic Party is hoisting up a candidate who, I mean, Biden is not well, right? Like, he's had multiple strokes. And I'm not throwing stones. This is not ableism. A stroke is a serious fucking thing, and does impact your mental faculties and ability to engage critically and analytically. And like, I've had people I greatly love and respect had strokes. I don't think any less of them, but I do. It would raise alarms if they decided to run for political office against people who had never had a stroke, because it's needless risk. Outside of that, just as a candidate, his policies are abhorrent or useless. There's no appeal. I do not understand the appeal, and when you ask his supporters what the appeal is, essentially it boils down to, well, we've got to beat Trump, and that Biden is the best option, and we just got to do it, even though he's not the best option, and smart money is on Biden losing against Trump. If you get it. I don't mean to... I don't know. I talk ad nauseum about this sort of thing all the time. If you follow me on any social media, it's incredibly political for obvious reasons, and I'm sure you've heard most, if not all, of this before. So I'm not going to keep hammering on, but that's on my mind, like, constantly. Just... oh god, this agony of feeling like the world is falling apart and there's very little to do. I mean, it would feel this way normally, but it's particularly compounded because I'm in isolation. Yeah. And if I'm not worrying about that, sometimes I'll have bits where I start worrying, well, I'm not making any money right now, and just doing anything is costing money, and when am I gonna have to go look for a new job? When am I gonna have to... really, the prevailing question when I start thinking about that sort of thing is, at what point am I going to be forced to look for a new job when it could still be at the cost of my health or the health of people around me? Now, probably not. I have savings that will last me through June without any sort of unemployment benefits or government bailout or assistance. So add that on top, that'll get me through. I could even push it to August, honestly, depending on unemployment, which still is not gone through, even though I filed for it 2 weeks ago, and I've filed for every week, but whatever, they're overworked, they're on it. I don't desperately need it, and there are people who really, really desperately do it. Like, I'm pretty financially okay. Like, I'm not rich, but like I've said in the past, I'm better off than a staggering percentage of the American population. A staggering percentage. Like, I do very little. I'm young. Fairly young. Anyway, getting older every day. Birthday's, this week? Yeah, Thursday. Well, not that I really celebrate my birthday anyway. I was gonna make a joke about gonna suck celebrating it in quarantine. It's gonna be no different than if I weren't in quarantine. I don't really have folks around here who I would celebrate my birthday with. I was planning actually on going back to Indiana and Kentucky and visiting friends and family for my birthday. Seeing sick relatives and friends I haven't seen in years, that sort of thing, but well, minor pandemic put a stop to those plans. Whatever. I mean, it sucks, right? But I'm saying whatever because I don't want to dwell on it, and I don't want to be belly aching over something that, while it is disappointing, there are people dying right now, and I've had friends who have gotten sick and are fortunately recovering, hopefully continuing to recover. But, you know, I'm trying not to complain because I'm fortunate. Very fortunate. I'm incredibly angry, like, all the fucking time. Just constantly. I have such a hard time imagining how or why we'd go back to normal after this. When more people than at any point in modern US history are unemployed, or on unemployment at least, like obscene numbers of people, higher than at any point on record. And we can't go back to a system that allowed this to happen. We can't go back to, well, okay, you know, the worst of the disease is over, get back to work. You know, tens of thousands of people are dead as of today by the end of this crisis. Hopefully we don't break the 100,000 mark, but there are projections showing that we might. Fucking crazy. I can't fucking do it. Like, I don't think I can go back to normal. I already have a very hard time pretending like normal is okay. A very hard time. Like, I really, really struggle engaging with society, engaging with capitalism, and not just wanting to do something violent and regrettable, either to myself or to institutions or individuals which I feel epitomize this horrible thing, like, say, Donald Trump, or Donald Trump's really up there. For example, that sort of thing. I'm not a violent person, and definitely this should not be taken seriously, but it's something I'm really fucking struggling with, is I don't want things to go back to normal. I want people to put our fucking foot down and say no. No, human lives are not commodities. Human health is not something that should be profited off of in exchange. The rights of individuals to have a home and shelter and food and healthcare and education and to be able to pursue their passions and the betterment of humanity should not be something that's only offered on a fucking premium. It just makes me so angry that this is the world I was born into, and older generations consistently repeat that, well, you just gotta deal with it. To quote Dr. Biden, just swallow a little. A fucking disgusting turn of phrase. Dr. Biden being Joe's wife? If you were confused by that at all, yeah, I don't know. I really like to try to spin these to being more uplifting or positive at the end. I don't always accomplish that. I oftentimes do not accomplish that. But right now, I'm really struggling to do that. Invariably, most of my conversations with people over the last month have turned in this direction of like, hey, shit's like fucked, and I have a hard time seeing it getting better before it gets a lot worse, both in terms of the pandemic and the economic collapse and our society. There are some God, I forget the correct terminology. There's some Marxists who are like, yeah, this is great. This is just late stage capitalism collapsing in on itself, and you know, we're one step closer I'll be real with you. I don't believe. I really don't believe in the idea that miraculously one day capitalism will just collapse or get to the point where everyone will recognize it's so bad we have no other choice. It's very fanciful. It's very mythical and childish. If I'm being honest, it's incredibly childish. Just in terms of human history, people don't wake up one day and be like, oh my god, the world is terrible. No, it's a slow cascade of things that slowly push people more and more in certain directions, in more desperate directions. Like the Renaissance, for example, and I know the Renaissance obviously was not like a catastrophe, arguably, but when oftentimes modern people think about the Renaissance, you think about it as happening kind of like all at once, right? Being this really short period of history, but the Renaissance lasted centuries. The Renaissance wasn't just limited to one city in Italy like Florence or Milan or Rome or Venice. No, it happened all over the place. It was more like a philosophical change, a social change, and it took time. It took a considerable amount of time. And so too would any kind of rising up of the oppressed workers of the world, tearing off their chains. Yeah, I think people cling a little too tightly to a book written by an insightful man, but a dead man from the fucking 1800s. You know, Marx was right about a lot of things, but I don't know. I don't really believe in the more cataclysmic endgame that a lot of people seem to have in mind. Even if I did, it seems awfully callous to me to look at the suffering of tens of thousands of people afflicted and suffering with the disease, hundreds of thousands diagnosed with the disease, and I suppose suffering from the disease, tens of thousands, world total isn't over 100,000, is it? No. Maybe? No. Quick math. No, it isn't. Not yet. You know, I think it's callous to look at the deaths of so many people and the suffering of so many people and be like, aha, suck at capitalism, your time is slowly coming. Like, yeah, fuck you, you little useless edgelord. Like, if you're really concerned about the suffering of the oppressed, if you're really concerned about the downtrodden, if you're really concerned about overthrowing the oppressive systems that demean and belittle and dehumanize all of us, owning class and working class alike, if you really are interested in deconstructing and decommissioning and radically changing and addressing that, you have to, in my mind, do it out of a place of compassion and empathy and love for your fellow human being, because what the fuck else is the point if that's not your guiding light? If your guiding principle isn't helping people and working with people, then what fucking good are you? How are you any different? Yeah. So I'm exhausted, as I imagine most people are right now. It's an exhausting time to be alive, though I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be in relatively good health. I don't know. I don't want things to go back to normal, and all of this death and suffering and pain and loss and unrest and upheaval to just be a minor inconvenience, a bump in the road for postmodern capitalism, right? I don't want that. I hate that idea so much. I would rather fucking riot than go back to everything's fine, let's vote for a fucking centrist against the fascist, and oh well, the centrist lost. Who could have seen that coming? Guess we'll just have to settle for fascism for another 4 years. If you start looking at things in terms of wealth, not in terms of political party, certain trends in the United States become abundantly visible and clear that it doesn't take a genius to deduce, and that kind of rhetoric is used a lot by all sorts of people on the political spectrum, right and left, fascist, socialist, liberal, conservative. Class consciousness is a very curious thing. It's an important thing, and a thing that we historically and contemporarily are significantly, horrifically lacking in the United States. I've talked about this again to the point of ad nauseum. The point of exhaustion and disgustion. There we go. To the point where it's disgusting. Is how much I've talked about this, but the vast majority of Americans, impoverished Americans, desperately impoverished Americans, do not see themselves as poor people. They see themselves as temporarily disadvantaged rich people. And they're not, dude. You're not. I'm not. I financially am middle class, but the middle class doesn't really exist. Not significantly, not meaningfully. We are the working class and the owning class. And if you don't see that, you know, it's okay, you don't have to. If you don't want to, you know, look behind that curtain, you don't have to, but it's real, and being ignorant of it isn't going to make it any less real. That billionaires are not going to save you, and they're not going to save the planet. They're maybe not even going to be able to save themselves. And if you look at the behavior of Bezos, for example, in these last few weeks, he's been a complete fucking rat. Just absolutely horrible. Yeah, you know, I'd give my people emergency pay, but we can't afford it. And oh, you know, maybe we can crowdfund healthcare for my employees. Yeah, here's an idea. Fuck you. Do the right thing. But it's not just him. It really isn't. Hobby Lobby, for example, took forever to start closing down. Even fucking GameStop has insisted at various points that they are an essential service. It's made abundantly clear how capitalism does not give a shit about you. The corporations don't give a fuck about their employees. What they care about is money. What they care about is their bottom line. That's the only thing they're incentivized to care about legally, financially, materially. There's so few consequences and forms of accountability in this country that, oh yeah, I guess our employees died, or, well, you know, I was under the impression that we were a essential service. And even the idea that restaurants offering takeout and fast food or delivery are essential services, dude, that's horseshit. That's absolute horseshit. The federal government should have seized control of grocery stores and restaurants. Should have paid the grocery stores and restaurants for the goods they were seizing. The federal government then should have redistributed food using a God, what was it called during World War II? A rationing system to make sure everybody had what they needed. And that the maximum number of people who could stay home and not work and not risk infecting anyone did stay home. But, man, this is America. We value free enterprise, and, oh, if big government can't be doing da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's we value these stupid, fictional liberties. And they are fictional. To the point where we're unwilling to take decisive, meaningful action in order to preserve human lives. It's really abhorrent. It's really, truly abhorrent. So many people are trying to blame Trump for this being as bad as it is. And hey, he's made a lot of fucking bad mistakes. Well, no, not mistakes. He's made a lot of bad choices. He's a fucking idiot in so many ways, and a complete, just abject failure. As a businessman, as a human being, as a father, yeah, he's just pathetic, really. He's not the problem, though. Americans really want him to be the problem with America. And I think that's why secretly Americans love him. Because he's what's wrong with America. He's what's wrong with our democracy. Oh, if we could just get him out of office, everything would be fine. Yeah. It's not like there's an entire political party dedicated to supporting him, or, you know, anything like that. It's not like there's an entire class of people in the United States who have profited and been collaborating with his government in order to enrich and further empower themselves. It's not just one dude. It's one type of dude. It's, well, look, I don't trust millionaires, but, I think you could make millions of dollars without directly exploiting people. But once you hit billion, I think you really are kind of an irredeemably bad human being. Once you have the sort of capital that some minor countries can't match, and you're not utilizing that emphatically every waking moment of your life to better the human condition and save lives and give people work and housing and rights and protection, then anything else you're doing just a gesture. Make people think that you're not the fucking dragon that you are, just sitting on your mountain of gold, hoarding it away. Yeah, Trump is he's a symptom. He's a very, very aggravating symptom, very unpleasant symptom of a much worse disease. And getting him out of office is not going to cure the disease. It might alleviate temporarily the symptoms, but you know what? In the United States, that's what our entire medical industry is based around. That is what our pharmaceutical industry is built up upon. We don't cure diseases, we treat them. We find a way to make it profitable, to prolong your suffering, and keep you dependent on drugs. So, you know, maybe it's fitting that we're unwilling to establish or address or even recognize the long-standing sicknesses of our country. Yeah, you know, like I said, positive right now. Very, very positive. I don't want to be this angry. I really don't. I want to be trying to enjoy this time, this quiet, this peacefulness, this space to myself. I want to be focusing on working out and maybe talking to new people, you know, redesigning like my websites and some of my other stuff, streaming more often. But I mean, a big part of why I haven't been streaming every day is, yeah, I haven't been super sure about what I want to play. At the same time, I haven't really been in the headspace where I'm super playful. I've been really bitter and angry and critical, and I've been running like a lot more than I had been just to try to burn through that. Inside, I have a elliptical. It's not an epilator that pulls out hair. This is an elliptical that I run on. It's fine. But yeah, you know, kind of fucked. It's really kind of fucked. So many things are. And it's so difficult to see anything to hope for, really. And I know this is, you're playing with fire when you're looking for hope. Right? You absolutely are, because once you're looking for hope, you are in a very exploitable position. You're in a very vulnerable position, naturally. If you're in a position where you are in need of it in the first place, you're probably in a vulnerable position. Not the most groundbreaking hypothesis there, Alex, but it leaves you vulnerable to people offering false solutions. Solutions like, forgive me for this, religion, or, well, religion is really what comes predominantly to mind, or it's a big attractive force to fascism, really, is that sort of fear, that need of hope, that need of some sort of guiding light. Desperate people search for solutions. When you want a solution, doesn't matter if it's perfect if you're that desperate. I have been obviously a huge advocate of the Sanders campaign, to the point where if he loses the Democratic nomination, and I admit right now it's not looking so great, but you know, we're less than halfway done, and every day is a whole new month basically this year, so it ain't over till it's over. I'm voting for Sanders in the general election all the same, because he's my candidate. He's the only candidate who even comes close, and also he's the only candidate running right now who isn't a rapist. So, you know, that helps, right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, Wisconsin votes today, even though they absolutely shouldn't be. They, their governor had put a hold on the vote, but the Supreme Court of the United States, the fucking Supreme Court, overturned it. Because, yeah, the Supreme Court is just the least democratic institution in this fucking country. Yeah, go ahead and point a bunch of old people to the same position for life with no way to remove them. Smart. Bunch of old, out-of-touch Republicans saying that, oh, the show must go on, essentially. Damn be the consequences. Fuck the little people. Now, I mean, if you're in Wisconsin, I absolutely hope you do vote. Hopefully by absentee ballot, but from what I hear, that has been a fucking shit show. So, given all the difficulties with voting in Wisconsin, I'm kind of expecting Bernie to lose that state too. Because the corporate media has been absolutely hounding that Biden's the only option, and we all gotta circle around Biden, and oh, Bernie can't win, and da-da-da-da-da. Because they desperately need him to not win, because they're terrified of him, because he's an anti-corporate candidate. And if you took any fucking amount of time to think about why this for-profit industry would be pretty much campaigning for this one candidate against this other candidate, you could probably put two and two together. It's the same reason why so many were campaigning against Trump in the 2016 election, is he was using a lot of the same language as Bernie did, which fascists often do. National Socialism adopted and oh my god, reconfigured a lot of the language and infrastructure of socialism to twisted ends and twisted means. So when Trump was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna drain the swamp, yada da da da, I mean, anyone with any sense didn't take him too seriously, because of course that's not what he was going to do. But on the off chance that was what he was going to do, the mainstream media and traditional moderates, wealthy, would rather prop up Hillary. And God, I would rather have Hillary be president than Biden. She at least makes an attempt to act like she has some sort of moral backbone. I mean, like, clearly she doesn't. Clearly she's just an absolute snake, and she's a politician. She's a very crafty politician, and she's incredibly good at being a politician. I don't think anyone can say otherwise. She is an incredibly efficient politician in traditional American ways. Biden isn't, though. he's just a senile old man who's being force-fed his lines. I mean, for fuck's sake, in his last interview, he had an earphone in that was getting his lines, and you can hear, hear like the pages turning of people changing the script in front of him, or on the first thing they streamed from his house, which was shot in front of a green screen and cut at least 3 or 4 times, and was still totally incoherent. He was doing one of these to tell the teleprompter to move faster because he was done with the line. Like, he's just like a sad old meat puppet at this point for a bunch of self-interested, wealthy corporate elites. I mean, it would be kind of heartbreaking if he weren't such an abhorrent person. Like, hey, are you in debt right now? Are you, like me, tens of thousands of dollars in student loans that you're unable to go bankrupt on? Thank Biden. or the Biden crime bill, or like all these other awful, awful pieces of legislature that have made life increasingly difficult for the working class, can be traced back to Biden. I mean, the dude's a fucking Republican. And he's prided himself on that. And, listen, you probably know all this. No one who needs to hear any of this is watching this fucking video, I'm sure. I don't know who's voting for Biden. I really don't. Old people who watch the news and still believe that they're being told the truth on the news. I think those are the folks who are voting for Biden. The people who remember the Obama administration with remember it affectionately. They're probably voting for Biden because they're like, oh, well, if Biden was the VP, maybe Biden will make it like that. But Biden was the VP of Barack's administration because Obama had the sense to recognize he needed to make a gesture to conservative elements in his party, i.e. the moderates, that he wasn't going to set all of them on fire. So he propped up Biden and offered the VP to Biden as this olive branch. I mean, Obama wasn't actually the progressive he made himself out to be. He campaigned like he was the second coming of Christ, but once he was in office, I mean, even coming down to the Supreme Court nomination right at the end of his fucking tenure, he was leaving the presidency. All he had to do was say, like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna go over Congress on this one and appoint whoever the fuck I want to, because I don't need your permission. But instead, he was such a goddamn coward, and so interested in maintaining the status quo and keeping people comfortable, that he let the Supreme Court nomination fall to a heavily conservative-dominated Senate, House, and now legislature. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I am saying he was not the president that he said he was going to be, which, you know, very few are, so can't hold that against him. He was better than predecessor in many ways. Not perfect. Of course no one is. I don't know, I don't want to live in the United States if it's more the same. I don't want to live in that world. I don't think I can. It's been hard enough to do it over the last few years. It's been really hard to do it over the last almost, no, I guess it's been 4 years of Trump now. It's been fucking exhausting. Yeah, I know I'm not the only one who's feeling hopeless, like I have no control. I know a lot of people are feeling like that. And if you're feeling like that, I absolutely encourage you to get involved with progressive political causes like the Democratic Socialists of America. There's some amazing people doing really great work. I have contributed financially to them as much as I've been able to, but not really in a position to do that anymore. Not really in a position to go out and campaign. I might be participating online in some ways, but God, I just give me a fucking direction right now would be great. I was gonna say a Molotov and point me in a direction, but that's not. It's not the message I want to be sending here. I am feeling very frustrated and desperate, but I genuinely hope there's a way forward that won't be needlessly violent. don't see it, though. I really don't see it. Yeah, alright, let's just plop this down. I know there's another island I have unlocked, but this has been an hour, and that was about all I wanted to get out here. Oh, genuinely, and I'm not just saying this for empty reassurance, I'm doing fine. I'm bored and also feeling a little like I'm watching Rome burn. But yeah, who isn't right now? Maybe in a month there will be a general strike. Maybe in a month, once we can go outside, people will organize. Maybe in a month. We'll see. Maybe later in this week something crazy will happen. I mean, Boris Johnson right now is in the intensive care unit with COVID-19. So hey UK, maybe your election didn't matter after all. But dude, I don't know. It's a fucking exhausting time to be alive. Take care of each other. Donate to causes, trying to help people if you can. If you can't, just stay inside. You know, you've heard this all before by now. Ugh. I'm gonna... well, I'd say sleep. I should. It's like 1... almost 2 in the morning now. We'll see what happens. Till later, I'm gonna say toodaloo, take care. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.